The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays or Sundays, SOR Media, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the expressed written consent of SOR Media is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced? Then come own the night with us.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all
Stationed atop the mountains of British Columbia, live from SOR headquarters. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and on Spaced Out Radio on iTunes. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio.
Brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric.
It's Friday, May 4th, Saturday, May 5th if you're on the East Coast or across the pond. And this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you had a great day and night. We're heading into the weekend, and I am your host, Dave Scott, live in the Great White North on top of the mountains of central British Columbia, right here at SOR headquarters. We are 150,000 strong nightly on the Spaced Out Radio Network. Don't forget, you can also follow us live Monday through Friday night on Periscope.tv. How y'all doing, Periscope? Good to see you tonight. Thank you for coming on in. If you head to our website, spacedoutradio.com, do a little shopping at our store. You can read up on the encounter online with all our great news. And my blog is there as well. We got great videos from UFO Seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. I want to say thank you for joining us this week. It's been a lot of fun, and we're going to do it all again next week. But first, we got to have some fun this weekend, and it all starts right now. Who's with me? Who's ready to take the ride? Do you own the night? Come join us if you don't. There's lots of room, and we are accepting anyone and everyone who wants to join us. We're going to have some fun tonight because it's the first Friday of the month, which means it's time once again for our Keith Andrews and the ET Connection. A lifelong experience with extraterrestrials, Keith joins us monthly to help you, the audience, figure out your experiences that you're having during the course of your life. We're going to be opening up the phone lines tonight. We don't do it very often, but tonight we're going to. 1-702-302 302-4556. That number once again, 1-702-302-4556. If you want to talk to Keith and me directly, or if you're in one of the chat rooms and on Twitter, do me a favor. Type in your question in capital letters so I won't miss it. Mr. R. Keith Andrews, good to have you back, my friend. How you doing?
Just great, thanks. It's been a, shall we say, hectic month.
How come?
To say the least. So how are things going on your end? Because I'll tell you, I'm really excited to be here today. This ought to be an interesting show.
It's going to be great. And, you know, a week and a half ago, we had our investor come on up here, travel up, and meet with me to see what we were going to be doing and what we wanted to accomplish. He is absolutely game for it. And so right now, we've got this giant process and this ball rolling right now as we look to build a brand new studio here in Spaced Out Radio Land. It's going to be a lot of fun when we finally get things going, but it's going to take a bit. It's going to take a bit, not going to lie, you know, but it happens, you know. I mean, you want it to happen right away. You want it to get going. You want it to be something that happens at the snap of a finger, but you got to take your time with it. And that's the big one. You got to take your time because you might as well do it right the first time rather than mess it around and trying to, you know, maybe screw up a little bit where you don't need to be making those types of errors.
Oh, absolutely. And, I mean, first and foremost, congratulations. It has been a heck of a long haul.
Thank you.
Glad you stuck with it.
Well, you know what? We're glad, too. We're glad, too. And, you know, I'm more happy, Keith, for the audience. I really am very happy for our audience because they are here every single night. We got more people coming on in. I love looking in the chat rooms. Like I'm looking in Periscope tonight. I see a bunch of new people in there that are checking out the show maybe for the first time, or maybe they've listened to it but they haven't taken part in the chat rooms. Love when that happens. Absolutely love it. It warms my heart because, you know, we try and do something really honest here, really genuine. And we try and take a road. Yes, we take a weird road where we go down a path that not everybody accepts or not everybody believes. And there's a lot of skeptics out there. And that's great that there are. You know, it's fantastic that people are questioning everything that we do. But it's also time, Keith, where you have to, once in a while, take that chance. Once in a while, you got to take that chance. So we're taking that chance. And I'm good with it.
Well, that's just it. I mean, things are shaping up very quickly, and you know, you are right. Every time I get started on a project, I'd like to see it come together all at one shot. I remember not too terribly long ago, things were at that real breaking point, you know, for you, and you're absolutely right. The audience would have lost a phenomenal source of information. You know, had you decided to fold, but it does take a whole new level when you're trying to build the solid studio. But the fact is, you've got it rolling, and you're likely, and the listeners are likely to find that it takes place a lot faster than what anybody is expecting.
I tell you, it's a lot of fun. It really is a lot of fun, and I'm very thankful that we have such a gracious audience that is willing to spend their evenings with us. You know, that's what means a lot, is the fact that you have people out there, Keith, who are actually wanting to spend time with you. I'm an introvert, man. I'm an absolute introvert. So the fact that everybody wants to kind of hang out with me on a Friday night like they are tonight, I enjoy it. It humbles me. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, and you know, I wish I could reach out through the computer and shake everyone's hands and give hugs away, you know, but I can't do that. I can only use my voice. Well, my camera, too, you know, because we're on Periscope, but that's okay. Why am I saying you know so much tonight? That's ridiculous. There are other sayings. There are other words out there. My goodness.
See, the good news there is you go, you know, and not everybody is going to assume that they know what you're talking about, but they're certain to know something.
For sure they are. Absolutely, for sure they are.
So you're not wrong.
That is true. That is very true. What have you been up to, my friend? How's the aliens? Let's get into it.
Well, that's. I mean, I've talked about the excitement that's going on off world as far as this point in history, as far as civilization goes. But I got thinking about it. What I've been up to, quite frankly, is a staggering level of writing and what have you, and that's another topic for another day, I suspect. But the thing that dawned on me, everybody, the big buzzword, and this is about the only time I'm going to use that word tonight, was disclosure. Well, I got thinking about it, and here we know there's aliens out there. Okay, we know there's aliens on this planet. There's too many people that have had sightings, that have recorded interactions and what have you. And everybody's been talking about the idea of, well, why don't they show themselves? Well, I was just thinking when I was talking to you earlier today, I was just thinking, how about if we put that on the other foot? We have, as humans, you've gone around, you've expanded the empire, you've gotten out into the into the different star systems, you've traveled light years, and somewhere off in the distance, you catch this radio wave, this derelict, ancient form of communication, and it piques your interest. These people are sending information out that clearly shows they've been thinking. They're looking beyond just their little planet. So we do a little research and we check and find out that these guys are actually, they've got something going on. It's a little backwoods. It's a little hillbilly, if you will, but it's happening. So let's go check it out. So when they get here, they find what amounts to, before I get to that, you've built a society that is working nicely. It's not perfect. There's problems. You've got conflicts going on. But at least the planet itself, your planet, is working nicely. So you come to this little planet, and just for simplicity's sake, we'll call it Earth. And here we have people that are not getting along on a global level, but individually, on every front, people are getting along, and they're working towards the same thing. People are some of the different nations are getting together and getting off the planet. They're working in unison to solve some of their problems. And so you start trying to make contact. And it doesn't go as perfectly as you'd like, but here we have a population that you're listening in on, and they're piping up going, well, why don't you show yourselves? Well, there's a lot of possible reasons, but I'm just thinking, from the alien standpoint, if we turn around and look at it, why not jump down? What would hold, and I'll pose this to the audience, what would hold you back from jumping down in broad daylight into this new world that is clearly conflicted and yet striving desperately to make contact? I've thought about this a lot because I've dealt with a lot of different races that have gone through that, and I give you a whole pile of different reasons, not the least of which is mankind, the people of this planet do have a bad habit of shooting first because they start everything from they're here to conquer.
But that's the history. That's the legacy, Keith, that has gone on for thousands of years. And I want to read a quick comment here from Canadian Joe on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio. He is saying, I can't blame extraterrestrials for not showing themselves. Earthlings must look like real savages sometimes.
And that is, I absolutely agree with him. And you are right. This is the legacy that has been left to this generation. And I'll call it this generation as everybody that's alive today. This is the legacy that's been left. And what I keep looking at is, okay, yes, it's certainly a dangerous place to just drop into, regardless of, even if you've got, a force field that'll stop the bullets from penetrating, it's still annoying. And especially if you're trying to make peaceful contact, the last thing you want to do is in my eyes anyway, show up and scare everybody to death just by showing up. But the other side of that, of course, is history has left, it has left us a legacy, has left everyone on this planet the legacy of fear, of concern, of the unknown being such a frightening thing, change being such a terrifying idea. And from that standpoint, we take a look at it and go, okay, we know coming to this planet that people are trained to be fearful. So, it's a great idea to make contact, but at the same time, we have to realize that by making contact in a big way, it could disrupt society on the whole. That's the one thing that also has to be taken into consideration. Now, we can go with the idea of let's bring a ship down because mankind can't blow it out of the sky. That's very true. But the other side of this is it will create, without a shadow of a doubt, it would create a staggering amount of panic if a ship were to show up in, like, one of the major cities and just sit there and hover, even if it wasn't doing anything intentionally to inspire fear, it's still going to cause an upheaval. And, I mean, you take a look at a place like New York or like Toronto or Vancouver, can you picture the nightmare that would happen in traffic alone if a major ship were to settle in and hover above the city? Especially when you look at what Hollywood's done.
That brings up a good point, though, Keith. I mean, Hollywood has done a great job over the last 20, 30 years of really depicting extraterrestrials in a negative light. For the most part, there have been good movies. Okay, there have been positive ET movies. Not many. But for the most part, they've made billions of dollars off of bringing extraterrestrials into a very evil front.
Very much. And that's the frightening part is that some of the extraterrestrials that they've depicted, they actually depicted them in the right light, just not a good one. Like, and one specific issue I'm referring to is when they produced Jupiter Ascending, the reptilian they have there it's a very good rendition of attitude and appearance of a Tormenon. Okay, they are mercenaries. They are descended from the Drakes. They're also related to the Srazazians. Both are offshoots of the Drakes. But in Jupiter Ascending, they do a very good job of showing that negative aspect. It would be nice if somebody would turn around and do that kind of job on something like the Nordics, or better yet, might be an idea to do an accurate one on the Greys. I mean, really, when we start looking at movies, the Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the first version of it. I haven't seen the second, so I can't speak to it. But the first version was a beautiful rendition of the Greys, right? But with that, and of course with culture the way it is, that just compounds the problem. So from that standpoint, I got to look at it and go, well, how do you go about bridging that gap? Now, the only functional way to do it that I'm aware of, if you try and turn it over to the governments, well, and don't get me wrong, I certainly don't have a problem with the governments and with them keeping certain things contained. But because the governments aren't all on the same page, if the off-worlders are going to do this, if they were going to make verbal contact to the governments, they'd have to do it all at the same time with the same message. Okay. If they're aiming at the other side of it, which is trying to get a hold of the general populace, they could certainly do an overall broadcast. But can you picture the amount of panic that would cause? And of course, the other side of the panic is so many people, and correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but so many people would chalk that kind of a broadcast up to a government ploy or possibly a phenomenal Hollywood stunt. They wouldn't necessarily take a radio broadcast as, radio contact as real. This is where it gets to be rather problematic. Anyway, I want to add this up.
Well, I mean, that brings up another question, though, Keith, in regards to the whole Hollywood rendition. Do you think because there's a lot of people who do believe that some way, somehow, Hollywood, along with video game makers, the way they portray extraterrestrials as well, are somehow linked to the government? Now, it's a far-reaching conspiracy. I'm not really buying into it, but it does look weird. They always portray extraterrestrials in a very negative light, for the most part. Now, if we think about the way that certain disclosure people are talking about extraterrestrials, that we got to put nukes up in space, which I think is an absolutely dumb idea, it all of a sudden makes sense, because the fear-mongering around ETs is very scary.
It is. And, I have no doubt, personally, and of course I've got no proof, so let's just understand, and I'll just state this for the record, this is my opinion. It's got nothing to do with your opinion or any of your affiliates or listeners or or anybody else, but I have no doubt that not only government, but certain industry leaders are certainly paying for this kind of information to be put out. Okay, to keep everybody in a fear mode, because, well, let's face it, the theory is it's easier to control people if they're afraid. Of course, the problem with that is that it's also a proven fact, even in human history, if you get people too afraid, they react in a very unfortunately erratic fashion. So we take a look at that, and yes, I absolutely agree that Hollywood has done a staggering job of creating a fear-based perspective. That's the neat little part. I love some of the comments coming up in our chat room here on Spreaker. Catherine's got, now Pokemon Go is funded by the government. I kind of look at this whole situation of, yes, somebody's got to be funding, but the thing that we also have to look at is, if we look at the possibles there, that's very true, but you listen to the listeners here, and these can't be the only listeners that are doing the same thing, going, every alien cannot be an evil entity. Because look at the number of people that we've talked to, and of course you've talked to way more on this show than I have, that have had positive experiences of different interactions. Yes, a little disconcerting on occasion, more often than not, but still very positive overall. And this is what we really have to start looking at is, change can be a little bit, to say the least, unnerving, depending on what it is. But, we had it real easy, like you and I did, and people our age and older had it real easy, because the worst thing we had to worry about was somebody moving to our area of the world from somewhere else. It was a shock for me years ago when I was in college, it was a shock to have somebody move here from South Africa, right? Can you picture the problem our kids are going to have, or the adjustments they're going to have at the start, where all of a sudden it's like, well, we had somebody show up here from Alpha Centauri, right? It will become just as commonplace as, and we are probably talking another century down the road, but it's going to become just as commonplace for a reptilian to show up in your neighborhood as it is for an Italian to show up in Toronto right now. Okay. Or for that matter in El Paso. The reality behind it is, between now and then, we have a staggering amount of, there's a staggering amount of distance to cover. Now, I'm just going to address one of these comments, really. Shar in Spreaker has said, I think all that positive thought are implanted memories. And, I can understand the fear side of it. And I have to look at the numbers. If we have to look at one question, and I'll drop the same question in your lap, Dave, as I do for everybody else. But the question people have to ask themselves is, do you believe in freedom of choice, or do you believe in destiny? Okay, because that will be the fundamental break point for a lot of things that people are going through. Because if we look at statistically, every thought being an implanted memory is a, to say the least, disconcerting thought from my standpoint. What do you think on that one, Dave?
Well, you know what? I look at it as a disconcerting thought overall when it comes to implanted memories, because I do believe it's happening. I do believe it's kind of like memory bandages that they are putting on, many of them, especially the ones that are having real negative occurrences. But on the flip side, much like people, I try and keep an open mind, and much like people, there are good people and there are bad people.
Well,
and I don't think we can be naive enough to say just because they're from an extraterrestrial planet means that they are here to cause us harm. I think that's naive. And that's not insulting Shar, okay, because she has a legitimate concern. Many people do. But on the flip side, we also have to realize, are there some humans that you wouldn't want to hang out with?
Oh, yeah. And, I'd like to add, as far as Shar goes, I actually would like to commend her on voicing that question, because there's a staggering number of people out there that won't voice that question. This is one of the things that I love about the questions that come up, is when somebody voices a question, and I've seen people go, this is a stupid concern, or it's a silly question. But there is a staggering number of people that have the same question or the same concern. And, I have to look at I look at the other side of it. If all of the positive, we can look at, say, all the positive ones are implanted. But if you're going to go that route, you also have to go the flip side and go, well, is it possible all the negative ones are implanted? Now, I don't know about you, but I've had positive and negative experiences that, I've had both positive and negative experiences that were hard to explain. The one thing, I will explain something here, and I'll go to another race altogether. Shar has mentioned, she says, they don't have the compassion humans do, right? And that's actually wrong. The Thrazazian race, for instance, the reptilians that are 7.5 to 8.5 feet tall, they are all born in a hatchery. They are born by eggs. The eggs are put into a hatchery, so they never truly know who mother and father is. But as those hatchlings break open, they are automatically helped and taken care of by everybody there, by the rest of the race. Now, where it comes to their interaction with humans, and I'm only speaking for the one race, not for every race out there, but for the Srazosians, they are trained. They take hours of training. Well, quite frankly, they take days and months of training in some cases on how to handle humans, how to handle human equipment. Because of the level of their strength, they don't want to inflict pain and harm on humans. That's just not their way. Now that said, there are certainly races out there that don't have compassion. You take a look at the vegans. Vegans don't have a pain center, so they don't understand anything to do with the concept of anesthetic or of pain relief. They don't understand why people scream when they do some sort of any sort of an experiment or of a sampling. They just don't get it because it's not even part of their being. Okay. So, and then again, you get the other side of it where when you take a look at the Greys, one of their biggest fascinations is the way that so many people from the same area can have so varied perspective on what's going on and still actually have a society that's gotten into space. These are all things that, you're looking at. Somewhere in the middle is where it all has to take place. Okay.
Yeah, let's get to a couple more questions here because they are starting to build up here. Kevin is asking, Dave, do you think, or do you and R. Keith Andrews believe that anything non-conforming to the norm is usually thought of as ugly and also considered bad or evil? Keith, you take that first.
It's sad to say, but the answer is yes. If it's abnormal, and it doesn't even have to, it's just outside of what people have gotten used to, people on the whole do tend to fear. They do tend to see it as a terrifying thing. And it doesn't even matter if the political party in control at that area is saying, look, these are decent people. People on the whole are going to see it as a problem. We can take this all the way back into chickens. I grew up on a hobby farm, and chickens on the whole are yellow when they're born. But we found when a black chicken was born, the rest of the chicks would try and kill it. We'd have to separate it to keep the thing alive. So, yeah, the moment you go into something abnormal as far as the common populace goes, they are going to see it with fear or with skepticism right from the get-go. The flip side of that, of course, is aliens have the same problem when they're dealing with humans, is they look at humans also with fear, not knowing how humans are going to react. They certainly have trouble understanding how humans can actually do some of what humans do. And it is met with mixed thoughts on their part.
All right, let's move over to Periscope here. We got a few questions building up there. Gail is asking, Keith, please tell us the off-worlders who care about Earthlings and protect us. Who are they?
Well, number one, you have the Srazosians. They are literally reptilian allies. 7.5 to 8.5 feet tall, very honor bound. They are military based, but they do not fight unless necessary. You have the Pleiadians. Okay, they are a humanoid race, roughly about human sized, but they are translucent blue. You'll never see it, and they're literally, you can literally see through them. they're not invisible, they're just translucent. But you'll never see a purebred Pleiadian on Earth because they can't breathe. They cannot survive in Earth's atmosphere. When you take a look at the consortium itself, which is an amalgamation of multiple races, they themselves are actually in favor of protecting the planet. They're not on the whole just here to safeguard humans, aside from they do desire humans to stay as the governing people of the planet. They don't. It's literally a case of, no, we're not taking it over. Okay. Then you have the fairy folk, which are actually not alien. They evolved here. They are actually, if you will, they are friends, as it were, but they're a little disconnected. Most of the people that we have, vegans, it's not so much vegans are on our side. They're certainly not against Earth. They're not here for doing any conquering, as it were. The other one, surprisingly, is there is a massive faction of the Tekluk, which are the 4.5 to 5.5 foot raptor-like reptilians, that are actually involved in a civil war in defense of Earth against their own people. Okay, and of course, the Mobians are certainly friends, so are the Nordics. And when we look at the Quaddle are actually in favor of mankind. They just have a problem believing that mankind is actually capable yet of a global government. So they do tend to keep a little bit of a distance from that standpoint. And that's just a couple of them. The massive majority are more neutral than anything else.
This leads to Catherine's question. Keith, then, how do you know it's not a peaceful takeover of humans on Earth?
Well, because of two factors. If it was going to be a peaceful takeover, the best way I can put it is it would have happened a long time ago. Could it be a peaceful takeover? Yeah, I suspect you could call it that. And I guess this is where it boils down to, from my experience, looking at it going, I happen to have the advantage. I've been on the consortium ships and talked to the council itself and been told point blank, and yes, for the devil's advocate side, they could have been lying. But they've made it very clear they don't want to take over Earth. They're actually very interested in keeping the information that is built into this planet intact. Can I prove it? Not a prayer. But does it add up for me that they're orchestrating a peaceful takeover? No. Okay, it just doesn't add up, because if you want to take it over, you don't wait until mankind has unified, which is what mankind is trying to do, and will succeed in time.
All right, let's go to a new question here from one of our newer listeners who's watching on Periscope for the first time. Halloween Cat. She's got really nice red hair. So we're going to ask all about that right now as I scroll trying to find the question here. She goes, how do people know about all these different races of aliens? I think, it's a good question, because so many of us see grays. So many of us have seen other species. How do we bundle them all together to actually know how many have actually been here?
Well, the best way I can put it, and I can only speak for me, having been on a ship where there have been been both on a ship and been in underground complexes on this planet, where there are multiple different races. To me, that was pretty much the same way as figuring out that there were many different kinds of cereal when you walk into a grocery store and you see all kinds of boxes firsthand. You got different cereals. To me, it's the same thing. That's the easiest way that I can look at how I know there's more than one race. That there's so many others. But you are right. The majority of the ones that people see are the grays, because the grays are the ones that are involved firsthand at keeping the hybridization program and keeping the records up to between the grays and the watchers, which are those rare people that people see once in a while, the real black ones with the red eyes that just kind of float there and do nothing. They are simply recorders. They simply are keeping tabs on what's going on the planet without any interaction, or at least without any deliberate interaction.
All right, well, this leads to Zozo's question tonight in Periscope. He is asking, Keith, how did you become such an encyclopedia on this topic?
Well, we'll start with, and that, again, especially for new listeners, that's a very viable question. We start with, if I'm just looking at this lifetime, we start with the fact that I ran into them on the day I was born. I ran into the Council of 12 that day, and it's been an ongoing thing. I'll be 55 in a week here, just about a week. And I've been dealing with it all my life. Now, add to that the fact that I've got past life memories that are both interactive on this planet and originating on other planets. The information that I've got is simply put, I've gained it the hard way, the school of hard knocks. And this is a journey that, in all fairness, and I know I've mentioned this many times before, it's a journey I would not wish on anybody. Because it does create its own problems. But ultimately, that's how I came across it.
We got lots more questions. We got lots more questions here. Let's get to Kevin here. He is asking, do you think that if they, the extraterrestrials, were beautiful and angelic in appearance, that they would be accepted as nice and here to do good?
Absolutely not. And we can take a look. It would be great if they were. But if we take a look back, and I'm going to have to go on Christian history because that's what I grew up with, so that's where I've got the information. But we take a look at Sodom and Gomorrah. It was an angel that showed up to try and tell the people to knock off the misbehavior that they really did want to help. They did want people to survive. And they were met with absolute terror. Okay, so, that's just one example. But again, it comes back to the issue of people fearing that which is out of the norm. The Nords themselves, very beautiful people. Okay, and in this case, I can honestly say both inside and out. But they appear in beautiful shape. And yet, when they were here in public, they were feared because they were different, because they had abilities and or technologies that exceeded what mankind could deal with. So, appearance, absolutely. Mankind, and for that matter, no other race, takes that as a sign of, oh, you look good, therefore you are good. You take a look at some of the biblical renditions of people, and, they show really good-looking people, really well-put-together people. Heck, we can even go to modern politics and modern industry. Some of the people that are running these things may look incredible, but let's face it, their intentions are a little, shall we say, shrouded. But it would be nice if it could be just gauged that way.
Sure.
But you take a look at humans. When you look at just normal people, it's not always the good-looking ones. Nor is it always, it's not always the good-looking ones that are nice, and it's not always the bad-looking ones that aren't. It's a real mixed bag.
Yes. I could use a very subtle, sly, snarky comment there, but I'm just going to keep that one to myself. The penman Michael is asking, Keith, have you ever had an encounter of the seventh kind?
Well, I guess I could start with going, who knows? I don't know what the seventh kind is. So if somebody can fill me in on that, I might be able to give an answer. Well, I will be able to give an answer, but I have no idea what it is. So, not a clue.
I'm Googling it. I knew the fifth. I didn't know we were up to 7 now. Now I gotta look.
I didn't even know the fifth.
Oh, let's find out.
Let's face it, Dave. I am probably one of the most socially inept individuals on the planet.
I may have a breakthrough here. Because I know J.L. and Hynek did the first few. But I have to find this 7th one now. Okay, a close encounter of the 6th kind entails a UFO or its inhabitants directly causing injury or death. It has been cited numerous times that this is unnecessary and is already included on the Hynek scale under physical contact. The most controversial encounter to most is a close encounter of the 7th kind. A close encounter of the 7th kind is one in which a human and extraterrestrial mate to produce a hybrid being. Basically, we're asking, have you ever played a little Barry White to Miss Alien on one of them spaceship rides that you've been on?
And this is one of those questions that I'm just going to flat out tell you I'm not answering. This has nothing to do with anything else, and I'd tell you the same thing if people were to ask me about that aspect of my own life. Not going there.
Oh, you're leaving a lot of open subject there. A lot of open subject. I have a feeling Barry White was played a couple of times. I'm going to razz you about this now.
You're more than welcome to. I just ignore that which I'm not about to answer.
Perfect.
Now, that being said, I can tell you wholeheartedly that the 6th kind I have had. What they classify, what you just read off as the 6th. And that being said, I'd be inclined to say probably the 5th, considering I had the other ones. I will tell you this, though. I do have some incredible friends off-world. And for that matter, of the ancient races. Because, for me, I don't see a difference in the people. I mean, don't get me wrong. Physical configuration, cultural differences, certainly. But I don't see them, I don't treat them any differently than I do the person I run into on the street here.
Well, since you're getting all blushing on us now, you're blushing on us, my friend, we have to move on from another question here. In regards to the extraterrestrials coming on, and eventually some sort of, we're going to have some sort of interaction. Now, for people who are in our age category, they'll probably remember the movie V, or the television series V, where we had a bunch of reptilians come down, play peaceful, and then they weren't too peaceful at all, after all.
Yeah, no doubt.
I think when we look at that, I'm not sure if society is actually ready for it, Keith. It's one thing to say they're out there. I mean, there is a 3-stage, 3-course meal here. Are they out there? Where do they come from? Have they been coming here? And if they've been coming here, are they here to stay? Now, it's easy to say yes, 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 yes. But it's a lot different to say yes comparatively to what we haven't experienced, which is, let's say, a town of reptilians or a town of Pleiadians coming on in and setting up shop, taking jobs. They took our jobs. You know what I'm saying, South Park fans. But you know what I'm saying, though, Keith, is...
Oh, Lord, yeah. And here's the thing. I mean, I could go into a whole sidetrack on the job thing, but here's the thing. Okay, and I do agree with you 100%. humans are not ready for overactive, for overexposure to the alien culture. The reason I say this is I myself have done it in front of people where somebody's been hurt and I've stopped the bleeding without laying a hand on them, where I've simply, working with energy because I'm an accelerated healer, I've literally stopped the bleeding by just holding my hand over top of them, of their leg. And the panic or the disconcertion that happens with just something as mild as that is absolutely bewildering most of the time. There's a mixture of excitement and intrigue. How did you do that? All the way to the point of I had a couple of people when I pulled that actually left the park I did it in. Because it really boiled down to somebody hurt themselves pretty badly on a skateboard before cell phones became a viable option. And instead of, while everybody was trying to get an ambulance to, find somebody to phone the ambulance, without laying a hand on the person, without physically touching them, I stopped the bleeding. And people panicked on that. Can you picture what's going to happen the moment? Never mind a human walking off a ship in your neighborhood. Can you picture what's going to happen if an octopod steps off the mat? This is, it is coming. And this is why I say we may be looking at another century to a century and a half before people are really that way inclined. But people are still getting used to the whole idea of different cultures on Earth. That seems to be the real focal point that we have to have.
Well, I mean, you can say what you will about what's going on Earth, but at least we know what we're dealing with.
Oh, I agree.
Well,
this is why I mentioned the issue of the healing, because that's happening on Earth. Okay, and there's a lot of people out there that can do it. But people that aren't familiar with it, that haven't seen it before, get edgy about that. So when we start looking at cultures that you don't have a clue of what their culture is, you take a look at what Gene Roddenberry said in the first place, way back when Star Trek was built. Right. The biggest problem that mankind is going to have when dealing with aliens is having no reference point to figure out what their intention is. Even if it is a positive one, there's no reference to understand if they reach out and, you hold out a coffee cup to one of them, you have no idea whether they're going to take that as an offer of friendship or a threat. You've just got nothing to work with. So with all of these different questions and the natural fear that comes with every race, it is going to be I don't want to call it frightening. For me, I'd call it a very intriguing time. But I'm a very different bird where it comes to the way I look at the world. Or in this case, at the worlds. But I do agree.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Keith. Go ahead.
I was just going to reiterate, I do agree that I do not feel that the human race, on the whole, is ready for blatant public interaction.
Mm-hmm. We got about 2 minutes here before we got to go to break here. And I don't know if you're going to want to carry this question over. Sinbad, actually, I'm going to carry your question into hour number 2 because Keith may have a little bit of a longer explanation to that. So I'm going to carry yours over. I haven't missed out on it. Let's go to Gail's question. She says, Keith, if I were to have an encounter of the 7th kind... My goodness, Gail, way to take this down the toilet real fast going into break number 1. If I were to have an encounter of the 7th kind, what race would I prefer?
I have no way of giving you an answer there, but I would have to. I would have to say, assuming you're, shall we say, a average human perspective, you'd clearly be having to go with somebody like a Nordic or possibly a Mobian. Of course, Radio Command, which is is a humanoid faction of the consortium. These are some of the peoples that would make sense. Now, of course, it really does depend on personal choice. Just bear in mind there are a number of, and I think these ones would throw you off. There's a lot of alien races that look more animal than they do human. So I mean, it really depends on personal choice as to what you're going to be more attracted to. I'd lay odds you'd be really content, and these aren't aliens, they're actually an ancient race, they're on the planet. But the fairy folk undoubtedly would be eye-appealing. But can I tell you for certain? Not a prayer.
Oh, I'm just killing myself laughing here because there's a lot of snark going on in Periscope right now because Ozo's asking, are they on Tinder? Aussie Rob is like, swipe left. On that note, we're going to go to a break here on Spaced Out Radio. Our Keith Andrews is our guest tonight. The ET Connection happens the first Friday of every month. You guys are awesome. You really are awesome. We'll be back with more questions and maybe your phone calls with our Keith right after this.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
Coming September 28th to the 30th, it's our first annual Caribou Paracon, put on by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. 3 days of paranormal, supernatural, and spiritual knowledge in the beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Tickets are $150 Canadian for the event, being held at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Come watch our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, and more. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Hey Space Travelers, it's Joe Roop, your host of Spaced Out Saturdays. Come join me as we explore the realms of the paranormal, the esoteric, and everything in between every Saturday night at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. You know the truth is out there. Don't get caught sleepwalking. Come join Spaced Out Saturdays. That's every Saturday night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, right here on spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, this is Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm going to take you for a ride every Sunday night on Spaced Out Sundays. I'm going to set up your week with some strange tales from across North America, from psychic readings, Sasquatch, UFOs, to the most haunted locations. Come join me at spacedoutradio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, and let's get weird together. I'd love for you to join me. Spaced Out Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spaceoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spaceoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for some great nightlife? The Moose Vancouver is the place to be. Catch a game on one of the big screens or just come rock out to your favorite 80s and 90s hair bands. Great food starting at $6.95. The Moose Vancouver is open until 2 a.m. nightly. It's easy to find near the corner of Nelson and Granville. The Moose Vancouver is the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over Spaced Out Radio Night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, we have Joe Roop coming on in because he hosts Spaced Out Saturdays. Now, we were going to have Tessa come in and host Sunday. However, due to my schedule, and we got to get Uncle Bob to get some audio done, we're probably going to have to delay that 1 week. So we're probably going to end up playing another replay this Sunday, get Tessa going on Spaced Out Sundays the following week. It's going to be exciting. Good times are around the corner back for Sundays at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on the Spaced Out Radio Network. If you want to follow us on social media, we are on Facebook, we're on iTunes too. We are also on Twitter and Instagram. Follow us live on periscope.tv. We would appreciate that. Thank you so much. And if you want to know where our archives are, go to our YouTube channel. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. I would totally appreciate if you did that. Thank you very much. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of people or features for you. I'm getting all rattled because the chat room is skipping on me right now. You can rock out to some Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, read the Encounter online, or watch great videos from UFO seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club, pachydermoperiostosis. Oh, God, did I just butcher that? Pachydermoperiostosis. There we go. Pachydermoperiostosis is your password. Bill sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. I practiced that one, too. Pachydermoperiostosis. There you go. Pachydermoperiostosis. Nobody knows what it means, but Bill sets it each and every night. Keith, get back in here. Get back in
Hey,
here.
how are we?
All of a sudden, I'm getting tongue-tied all over the place. Gee, whiskers, man.
Well, I was looking at that myself, and of course, in all fairness, I mean, I know you always give him a bad time, but I love it. I have no idea how he comes up with these. So what I end up doing is I go and look them up on Google. Well, in my case, I end up using Bing because I don't know how to get to Google instantly, but I always go looking for them because he always comes up with these really weird ones, and you're going like, how does he even come up with the idea for that as the password? But just simply for edification, it's the clubbing on the end of when somebody's fingers or toes end up developing into clubs instead of tapering off properly. They spread out. So they look more like golf tees on the end of your hand.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it refers to. Why he finds these or how, I have no idea.
He's getting meaner and meaner each week, too. Meaner and meaner each week. Honestly. All right. Now, before the break, I said we were going to get to a question here from Simbad. So this is off of Periscope. Simbad, thank you for waiting. He is saying, let me just scroll up here, make sure I'm not missing all of it. All right, no, I'm not. He goes, I have a lot of wide open land here in South Mississippi. Therefore, I have a huge view of the stars. How do I make contact?
I wish there was a straightforward answer to that. But the best trick that I can put out is when you're watching, literally, it's not a question of using a light. The reality is, from everything I've seen, it doesn't usually work as well as literally thinking in terms of literally show me you're there in a way that I can accept and understand. A lot of the ships have telepaths on them, and they do scan for that sort of thing. One of the ways to tell whether it's a UFO, because the first thing you'll do is spot the lights. But there's one of two things that you'll see. One, you'll see what you probably think is a satellite. And just keep in mind, a satellite travels in a straight line. Don't ask me whether it's north, south, east, or west. But they do travel at a static pace in a straight line. They don't vary. If you're watching one and it suddenly doubles back on itself, or it suddenly takes a left-hand hook and disappears, then it boils down to, then that's not a normal satellite. They don't have telemetry like that. The other one, for closer range, is watch the stars, and if you start seeing, apparently you're not the only one tongue-tied there, Dave. If you start seeing stars disappear and then reappear one after the other, then what you're likely looking at is a ship passing between you and them. And of course, for that to happen, let's face it, that ship's got to be somewhat closer. But that's the easiest way I can put it. Because, if you think about it, people talk about using a laser to get their attention. You realize how powerful a laser would have to be to get their attention? You're not going to get it in a pen light. It's just not likely to happen. But that's the easiest way to do it.
Well, I can tell you this. There are people out there, Keith, who do have the ability to summon.
Absolutely.
Right? And I still don't know how that kind of works. I mean, I used to be able to do that. Now, not for the life of me. Although, recently it seems to be maybe coming back a little bit. The other night after the show, I went outside. I was talking to... Who was our guest that night? Let me just kind of look at the schedule here. Who was it? It's just the other night. Anyhow, went outside. David Weatherly. It was David Weatherly last Thursday. Went outside, and I was literally just chatting with him, and all of a sudden there was a giant flash, like one of their power-ups in the sky. And so I said, thank you. I said, can you please do it again? And this time I had two of them. Same trajectory, about 9 inches apart on a ruler. Same trajectory, though. The one that I asked to do it lit up, and one behind it simultaneously lit up at the same time as well. So it was kind of cool to actually see that happen right in front, because I hadn't had that happen in a while.
Yeah, and that's always, that's always a fascinating thing when you make an effort to do something, and and you get success with it. It certainly helps, shall we say, reinforce your belief if it needed reinforcing.
Yeah, it's weird.
But exciting nonetheless.
Let's get to another couple questions here, because we're about 20 minutes behind on Spreaker. Catherine wants to know, what are the cooling systems like on these massive ships?
Actually, extremely good. There's a neat little thing, especially when you look at the OTE systems, and I'll just call it that because you're going to have a heyday if I try and again put that in words. But when you take a look at the OTE system, they actually take that energy and literally diffuse it out through the hull of the ship, meaning they can keep in any section, whether it's one room or another room, whether it's one room or the entire ship, depending on if we're dealing with different races, they can actually alter not only the temperature, but the atmospheric content in isolated rooms. So you can have races that don't breathe the same atmosphere operating on the same ship. Where it comes to the cooling side, because of the way the system is built, many of the systems don't have the cooling problems that mankind has, that human vehicles have, because they don't generate the heat in the first place. When you think about it this way, the OTE drive literally works off of departing electrons. So it doesn't have that heat problem that the rest of them do.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you get enough in there, or do you want to finish that up?
Oh no, I could go into a lot more in the scientific side of it, but most of our listeners are going to hear that as Greek.
All right, let's move on here. Christoph is asking, is our part of the world protected by these ETs due to being home to many bases?
Well, technically the answer is yes. There's actually very few that's their home, but it is absolutely a junction point where many races are coming and going. And the reason a lot of the reason why people don't see them coming and going as frequently as you might think is because they make a deliberate effort to leave on the far side of the moon where mankind can't see them in the first place. Something to do with having the moon between them and us. But yeah, it is very much an active little place. And, the concept that man hasn't been back there in years, they go back there on a regular basis. They just don't tell you about it.
Shar is asking, what sort of resources would they be coming to Earth for?
Well, most of it is quite literally data. And what I mean by that is when they're doing soil samples or they're doing, they do the abductions to pick people up. And it's not just humans they take. They're taking animals of every type to take blood samples and what have you. They are looking at evolutionary data. And it's not just, the thing is that the data they're pulling isn't just from Earth. It's because Earth has such an incredible hub that it draws the energy from the other areas as well. And they're looking at the subquantum recordings, as well as the fluids and the skin samples and what have you. They don't actually come here to wipe out or to strip mine the area. Okay, yes, some of the ships absolutely will take some of the water to run their ship. Okay, but you got to remember, this is along the lines, in their eyes, of humans going to the gas station and filling their car up with gas. Well, at least filling the gas tank. Usually a bad idea to fill the car. So, but they're not, the resource they're coming for is not a mineral or an atmospheric thing. There are some chemicals that naturally occur here that they collect. Okay, but we're talking chemicals that mankind doesn't even use. Like, there are trace elements of argon in Earth's atmosphere that you can take some of the argon out without damaging the atmosphere because it replenishes itself, and they can use that for some of their fuelings, depending on which race we're looking at. Okay, I think what's being asked is whether or not they're actually here to strip mine. Right. If we were taking a look at the tech, like, that was their original idea, was to come here and strip out every heavy metal that was available. And, much more importantly, they were planning on taking every crystalline structure that was available because of what they're dealing with on their end. And then, of course, their view on humans, that was just a bonus. But that is no longer the case. They're not being permitted to do that, is more to the point. Even amongst their own race, that's where the Civil War comes from between them.
All right, let's go over to Twitter. Graham is asking, he says, Keith, in 1979, I saw a shapeshifter, and my two brothers also saw its shadow, which was temporal. It had time within it. At one time, I stepped over into this and into an etheric galactic expanse. Question, why did this happen, and why does this sort of thing happen? Great question, by the way, Graham.
Oh, yeah. That is a fabulous question. The specifically why it happened, the only way I can put it, Graham, is that your timing was perfect, and at the moment, not only your cell structure, but your thought process was of a compatible nature. So stepping through that gap, it puts you into I'll put it this way. If you understand the multiversal perspective, it puts you looking at a wider picture than what Earth usually permits. But there are times when that gap happens, and with that particular entity that you were dealing with, clearly the combination of things made that conducive to your getting a look at something so much bigger. And I'd lay odds it left you standing there going, okay, Earth is a lot smaller than I thought. But the fact that you're still looking into things, that's a testament to your own curiosity and fortitude. But that's pretty much why it would have happened. Realistically, from my standpoint, it was a timing factor that gifted you with that experience, not so much an effort on anybody's part. I think that's the easiest way to put it.
Would that mean that he would have some sort of loss of time as well?
Quite frankly, he could have. Okay, because when you're stepping into that what I call in between time, it could quite conceivably throw it off kilter for an hour or so, possibly longer, depending on how long he had stayed there. Now, of course, that begs the question of whether or not he's looking at time even in the same fashion, because the amount of information that came in may well have come in a heartbeat. Okay, because time is mutable, he wouldn't have gone back, but he could have pulled in a staggering amount of information, much like the difference between what a standard, like a normal person reading, does when they're looking at an actual book, and the amount of information that a speed reader will pull in that same amount of time. It also, by the way, does mean he's likely open to that again.
That'd be an interesting experience, for sure.
Wouldn't it, though?
Eric with a K is asking, Keith, what interests you when you are not dealing with extraterrestrials?
Oh, that's the easy one, and thank you so much for asking. Writing. I've actually got a self-help book coming out in the next week and a half to 2 weeks here. It's already in the printer. And that's called Believe in Yourself and Follow Your Dreams. And I've got the first of a multiple series of novels coming out, referred to, that is coming out in the next few months, by the title of Ilderbach, Birth of the Wolf Pack, which is science fiction. Science fiction, science fantasy, depending on how you look at it. But that's what I do. I spend a lot of time just writing either that sort of thing or writing poetry, or, of course, I'm in the middle of doing a book on the alien races, which I realize is still tied to the aliens. I was asked to put it together. And then the other thing I do is I spend a lot of time down at the local skateboard park talking to the troubled kids and helping put them back on track in just day-to-day life. And let's not forget my family, because that pretty much takes a priority over all of it.
Yvonne is asking, Keith, I was once told by Paul Simon that Lemurians are no longer on Earth. Is this true?
No, but they're extremely rare, and they are not set up as a civilization. Lemurians are actually scattered, and there are not many left. You're only looking at a handful of them. Because, the reality of it is that the vast majority, and we are talking 99% or better, probably better, of the civilization died out due to an accident. In all fairness, it was due to an accident caused by curiosity. And that one I suspect we can get into in a great deal of detail, but Lemurians are still here. There's just not a lot, and they certainly aren't walking around in public. They're not walking around in, as a society, as it were. At least not that I'm aware of, they're not. I know there are still some on this planet.
All right, let's move on here. Snarky, make that Rachel, the Snarkette, wants to know, Keith, what is your view on flat Earth, then?
Well, it's flat. Not the Earth, but the view. Quite frankly, it does not hold water. In everything I've seen, it's a cute thought, but it doesn't, the whole concept of it being flat considering I've seen the other side of it, as in been off planet and seen the whole thing, the concept, as near as I've been able to piece together, is people that are still locked in a very old way of looking at things and haven't. There's nothing that I've seen documented, and certainly nothing I've seen from a physical standpoint that supports it. Okay, but I mean, everybody has to deal with life their own way.
True.
It's just, it is a little limited when you think of it.
All right. Let's get over to Gail's question. Keith, do you know why all the planets spin one direction except for Venus?
Well, that has to do quite literally with when you have to look at the quantum magnetic flux and the subquantum impact of the minor particulates. Okay, in that band, if they were to put another planet there, they'd have the same thing. It's kind of, I guess the best way to put it, it's almost like a counterbalance, to the rest of it. Because you put just that one little break in, and it keeps things moving in a stable pattern.
All right. Yeah. We can move on here. All right. Catalina is asking, do extraterrestrials make their own clones? If so, what for?
Well, that depends entirely on the race. The answer in some cases is yes. Many of them, it's because of body replacement, and they literally make them for the purpose of, well, it's kind of like a blood bank. Okay, a human blood bank. You put blood in a bank so that if you need it, you've got it. Well, they do the same thing. Let's grow extra parts. If you lose one, we'll just reattach and carry on. Some have learned to clone. Now, do understand, they clone the body, and they clone it for food. But if, for instance, you clone your body, you'll never eat it. It gets shipped off to somebody else because they never eat their own clone. And I know how cold that sounds, but from an economic standpoint, it makes total sense. Okay. And the other question, do they make clones for war? That's the problem with clones. I'm certain that some do, but when you make a clone, they all think the same way, and the last thing you need if you're trying to build an army is everybody thinking identical, because they literally walk at the same pace in a case like that. So, I mean, there are different reasons for it. But the major one is, except in one case. I'm just thinking there's one case where they actually make the clone and transfer their consciousness when their clone dies, or more to the point, is on its deathbed. They move their consciousness into the new body, which means you'll never see a kid in the area because they just don't have them. They just carry on. And then, of course, that begs the question, well, how do they avoid the race being wiped out? And that has to do with spiritual interaction, meaning other spirits come along and pick up an extra body and carry on, much like the Elfid race did when this planet first got built.
All right. Halloween Cat coming in strong with her second question of the night. Keith, do any aliens that you know of look like humans?
Yes. Radio Command does. The Mobians, the Mobians are humans, they just aren't here. They started off on Earth and then colonized Mobius. The Nordics, obviously, anybody, I call it obvious, anybody that's dealt with or watched the Nordics know they look like humans. If you look at, if we take the skin color out of the equation, then your Martokians would actually look very similar. The only problem is they've got a greenish tinge to their skin. But if we're looking at the same skin color, then you're looking at not too terribly many of them. Like those are the three major ones. But that being said, if you put them in, if you put them in darker lighting, so you can't actually see the skin color, then your Venusians, your Orions, your Martokians they all would pass for human if you couldn't see the different tint of their skin color. But the Mobians will walk by you, and the Nordics will walk by you. You'd never even notice. Even true dwarves can walk by you. Aside from their stature, they look human. They look like, well, dwarves.
Tell her about Dawn.
Oh, okay. Yeah, see, Dawn is a Pleiadian hybrid. Okay, I mentioned at the beginning of this show that Pleiadians cannot exist on this planet. They just won't live because the atmosphere will kill them. But Dawn, again, has the distinct problem that now, Dawn is a Pleiadian hybrid that can modify his pigmentation. Okay, and what I mean by that is he can actually shift it so when you're looking at him, he looks Caucasian, with a little bit of a tan to it. But he also, if you look at him in the right light, or if he's not paying attention, he's actually got a bluish tinge to his skin. And before somebody jumps on it, we are not talking about colloidal silver. Because colloidal silver, yes, it makes the skin blue, but people taking colloidal silver can't move their pigmentation. But, those are some of the ones that will pass for human very quickly, especially at first glance. I think that's
all right. We can move on.
That's the primary ones, anyway.
Yeah, we will move on here. Let's go to Dan in Spreaker. Keith, in your opinion, is our only best defense direct resonant frequency of their craft?
Our only best defense?
Yes.
No. But that being said, would that work as a defense, assuming you were looking at a battle? The answer is yes. The side effects may be a whole lot less enjoyable because the reality behind it, if you can get that direct frequency, then you can interact with their ship and get through any of the defenses, making it a whole lot more viable, given that you're dealing with small scale. Because clearly, if we're dealing with large scale, if you're actually dealing with all-out assault, it won't matter. But the answer to the question is yes. It's not so much it's the only, but it is one of the best defenses. Okay, and I presume that comes from somebody with a military background.
All right. Let's move on here.
Absolutely.
Destry is asking, who then mutilates the cows and why?
Well, the who that's a bit complicated because there's a couple of them that do it. And let's eliminate the grays right off the bat. Tormenon are known to do it, but Tormenon are known to do it for nothing more than to create a stir, because they've got no functional purpose for it. Tormenon are an interesting breed. The majority of the reason is, on the whole, it is because of the medicinal qualities of the organs that are being taken. Okay, they don't need the rest. And the reason they just leave them is because Mother Nature on this planet does have a tendency of reclaiming the carcasses in a real hurry anyway. So they just look at it going, it doesn't really matter. One of the obvious ones, like the mantids, are quite consistent at pulling these guys out, at doing the mutilations. And there's they do it for a lot of reasons, but mostly it's the medicinal side. It's not actually, they're not trying to do research to find out about something. It's kind of like harvesting kelp. They know what it does, so they put it to use. And the answer to the question, why the cattle? Well, because they're the ones that have the stuff they're looking for. That's why you don't find them taking organs from every type of animal.
What about the ones who are doing the exact same type of mutilation to people?
Well, in all fairness, I hadn't actually heard about somebody. You're talking somebody doing that kind of mutilation and leaving the body behind?
Well, they're absolutely dissecting the body and then throwing it back down. Maybe the body is cut in half with laser precision, or organs are removed, jawbones removed.
Well, that being said, that in all fairness, that's the first I've heard of that side of it. It doesn't surprise me. And that I would undoubtedly pin down to and I will look into it to see what I can find out, but I would undoubtedly point that one at the primary Teklex race. Like I said, they've got a civil war going on, so not all of them are into that. But that would be an issue of going after delicacies. And of course, throw the Tormenon in there just because they are a twisted bunch. They're mercenaries, and they'll do whatever they're asked.
Butch Witkowski from UFO Cop has actually investigated cases of that on the East Coast.
Right. Yeah, in all fairness, as you know, I'm not what we call a researcher.
Very much so. Very much so. We can move on here. Eric is asking, are men in black organic robotoids, clones, or humans?
They're human. I question that on occasion as far as their attitudes go, but human. They just happen to be very specifically trained. And for a very specific purpose. So I have no doubt. Well, never mind, no doubt. This is going to sound really campy, but the movie's Men in Black is actually not as far off the beaten track as you might think. But the people the Men in Black, the people, are human.
What about the people who say that a lot of these Men in Black look somewhat off when it comes to looking like a human? They almost look alien-like, or maybe they're wearing some sort of humanoid-type skin.
Well, that's just it. When you're dealing with the Men in Black, they do have, that is actually part of what they do. And it's because that's, if you will, their uniform. Okay? And it's to avoid identification. It's so that if you're seeing them, you're not able to pin down exactly who they are. But underneath it all, you're still dealing with humans. In all fairness, since I don't know their entire roster, I could certainly see some of the other very human-looking individuals, such as Radio Command, or, I could certainly see the Mobians. Possibly you could find one that would actually work with the Men in Black, in the same capacity, doing the same thing under their guidance, kind of a exchange, if you will. Right. but we're not dealing with robots. You're not dealing with androids, or cyborgs. You're dealing with flesh and blood individuals. As for looking off, well, it's sad to say part of the looking off is certainly going to be the panic and the shock that people go through when these people show up.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's the best way to put that. Make sense?
Yeah, for some reason my microphone button got stuck there. I apologize.
Okay.
All right. So I've asked you this question 2 times now with my microphone apparently on mute. All right. Carousel is asking. I know. Carousel is asking, what kind of alien is very pale, 7 feet tall, communicates telepathically?
Well, there's a couple of them that'll do that. Your Pleiadians actually fit that bill. And if you were talking to one of them, you're looking at the right height. They would had to have been in a protective suit. They certainly wouldn't be out in flesh and blood. Okay. That'd be number one. There are some of the Nordics that can communicate telepathically. Did she mention in that question if we were talking if they were humanoid or if there was something else about them? Because there is another 7 foot that is humanoid.
Maybe go through both of them.
Also, try that again?
Maybe go through both of them.
Laborians they're feline around the 7.5 foot, 7 foot mark, but they are also telepathic.
She says all white. All white.
All white. Okay. I would lay odds that you're dealing with actual Pleiadians. There is one other race, come to think of it. And for the life of me, I cannot recall the name, but there is a race, and they are strictly telepathic because they've got very little in the way of a mouth aside from what to eat with, aside from almost a liquid diet, that are very... and they are simply curious about, they're more interested in the neural net and the interaction between humans and the neural net than they are in any other aspect. So when they're actually striving to communicate with somebody, it's not just the communication that they're looking at. They're also watching the residual and the interactive side of the communication line to figure out how it works. Because it's kind of the neural net is something that developed on this planet that doesn't develop on the other ones. But I say, and now I'm going to have to, this is what I get for not actually dealing with all of them regularly, but I can see the picture.
Right. Well, this is the follow-up comments here. Carousel is saying, I felt my husband and I were abducted by one, tall, white, female, human-looking, slim, in the 1970s, abducted in a dream. She was putting a needle in my leg. I woke up with a swollen mark.
I'd lay on she was dealing with a Nord. The thing is, Nordics are... well, they're Caucasian. I don't know if that's what because especially if you take a Nord that doesn't get out much and you put him in a bright light in the first place, he's going to appear almost, or in this case she, is going to appear almost chalk white. But it is a very good bet. And of course, as I've mentioned on previous shows, when you're dealing with Nords, you are dealing with people that they're in constant contact with the Greys. But that would be the best bet as to who she's dealing with, especially given Especially given the time frame that she was dealing with it.
All right,
but I certainly don't feel she was in any danger per se.
Jägermeister is asking, do aliens have souls?
Every single one of them. There isn't an alien alive that doesn't have a soul. And of course, the follow-up side of that question would be twofold. One, yes, they do have their own religious beliefs, some with singular gods, some with multiple. And two, if you follow the line of thinking in the way of past lives, yes, it is very distinctly probable that people have had past life experiences as aliens. I know for a certainty that I've got a couple of people that I know of that I deal with today that they're in a human body, but they are clearly not living a human perspective because they have way too many troubles with it. But yeah, they definitely have souls. Every single one of them does.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
All right.
Aside the dead ones, and they've kind of vacated.
They moved on. By the way, Carousel says thank you. She doesn't feel she was in any danger. She felt the extraterrestrial wanted some sort of info, and that was it. Gail is asking, Keith, if the does the consortium see you as an ambassador?
Well, the best way I can put that is yes. And the answer to the question as to why is, as near as I've been able to piece together, because I don't see, aside from the obvious physical difference, I don't see a difference in any of them. No matter what their physical configuration, their status, their rank, I don't see humans any differently than I see them. And quite frankly, from what they've explained to me, that's something they have trouble finding in any race. Okay, and do understand, when I talk about I don't see a difference, I don't mean I've learned to accept everybody. I mean, I literally don't see a difference. Which, I don't know, does that make sense to you, Dave?
Somewhat.
Well, that's as confusedly honest as you can get.
Somewhat.
But I deal with them from the standpoint of helping not only them understand humans. Obviously I'm doing my dangest as far as our listeners go to understand the off-worlders. But I have also been brought in to help different races understand each other. Okay, where trying to get an amoeboid to understand a vegan, because amoeboids are all about feeling and every nerve in existence, and vegans have absolutely no concept of pain and discomfort. The funny thing with a vegan, you cut his arm off, the only thing he'll notice is he doesn't have the arm to pick something up with, and he's got to go get a new one. And so trying to help these people understand what each one is going through is challenging on occasion. The difficult part, of course, is I started off as an abductee. Well, no, that's not true. I started off as an unexpected visitor, went through the routine of being a very unwilling abductee, and, well, here I am today.
Eric is asking, could we be using beam technology to shoot down UFOs?
Well, technically the answer is yes. And mankind has got some beam technology that they've developed. It's not as effective as humans would like to believe. But on the best way I can put it is, on a small scale, it can work. So if you're only looking at a singular ship, but the amount of power that mankind still requires for their beam technology does preclude putting it into a ship, like putting it into an aircraft. It has to be land-based at this point. They haven't miniaturized it enough to turn it into an effective weapon for close combat. But they could certainly be using it. They could also, quite frankly, you can also use sonic weapons. And again, it's a energy requirement problem that limits the effectiveness of it. But beam technology is coming.
Are we shooting down a lot of ships, Keith?
No. No, if mankind was shooting, usually what it boils down to is one of the ships gets too close to somebody and they get shot down. So from the alien standpoint, it's noted where it went down, and they avoid the area like the plague for a little while. And then they adjust accordingly and then go right back into it. It's kind of like getting your hand slapped. See, if mankind was shooting down too many, we wouldn't be having this debate as to whether or not they were nice aliens out there or not. They see it right now as one of the hazards of exploring a budding, a fledgling interplanetary race. That's why they don't take full offense to it.
All right, we got about 4 minutes here before we got to go to break. 5 minutes, actually, Keith. Shar is asking, how many different insectoids are there, and what are they like?
Well, when you take a look at the ants, we're not going to discuss those right now. I still have troubles with those. The ant folk are one of the races I have a lot of trouble with. There are, now from the vegan are technically an insect. The vegans are very interested in humans from the nerve standpoint. They don't understand it. And humans are so easy to repair. They just don't get the idea of the pain center that humans go through, or for that matter, the fear factor. So that's one of their primary focal points of their research. Then you have the mantids, and it sort of depends on which one you end up with, which mantid you end up with, as to how well they're going to treat people. But they are they're very interested in the societal evolution of man, and especially from the focal point of mankind not being unified and yet civilization still thriving. Okay. Then there is a race that looks very much and behaves very much like termites now. Fortunately, they're not on this planet that I've seen. Primarily, the reason I say it's fortunate is because when we're talking about a race that creates a problem, picture the locusts in today's world. When they swarm, it becomes a problem. Well, the termites basically do the same thing, but they will destroy an entire planet because they'll absorb it and they will strip it. Only in most cases, when people go to strip mine, they leave bits and pieces. When these guys hit a planet, they literally dissolve the thing. And this is why I said, thankfully, they're not here. Okay. You do have a grade where you've got the mantids. You also there is what would appear to be a grasshopper race. And I don't mean the kung fu type. That is, they're an interesting group, but they are they're much more on the creative side, on the peaceful side, than virtually any of the rest of them. Okay. That, I think, is the primary ones. Now, of course, we can go into the scorpions and we can go into the crab folk. But these aren't insects, they're crustacean. But I think those are the primary ones anyway of the insect type. Not entirely. We do have there's one race of beetle that basically they're great when it comes to, they'll touch down in a place that's been decimated, where things have rotted. Okay, because that's not only what they feed off of, but it's what they run their equipment off. So they'll go onto a planet that has had some sort of a plague or some sort of decimation and we're not talking something that burnt. We're talking about something that died out. Okay. I mean, they had a heyday on this planet over the period of time when the dinosaurs were dying. They had an absolute heyday with the carcasses that they were able to come in and work with. But I think that's the primary ones that you're looking at.
All right, my friend, we got about 10 seconds here before we got to go to our final break of the night. Our Keith Andrews is our guest. He comes in the first Friday of the month talking everything extraterrestrial. Some may sound a little strange, other a little quirky, but most of all, sometimes he actually makes sense and gives great advice for the ET experience with his ET connection. Keith will be back for hour number 3, as will I, on the mighty SOR right after this. Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
The first annual Caribou Paracon is happening September 28th to 30th in the 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Brought to you by the Canadian Society of Questers and Spaced Out Radio. Come listen to our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Elizabeth Anglin, Paisley Town, Mike Moran, Eric Cooper, and more. It's a 3-day supernatural adventure at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Tickets for the weekend are $150 Canadian. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
We're lighting the void on Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio. Hey, this is Joe Roop, and I'm hanging out in SOR headquarters every Saturday night, bringing you the latest news when it comes to the weird and strange. Bigfoot, occult, UFOs, ghosts, and everything in between, I got you covered. You can tune in to SpacedOutRadio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. Come travel into the void with us on Spaced Out Saturdays.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on spacedoutradio.com.
There's stories, then there's the truth. Do any of us really trust the news anymore? This is Jamie Sexton, owner of Rebel Planet News. The third Thursday of every month, I appear on spacedoutradio.com to bring you the truth you deserve, without mainstream media lies or alternative media fear-mongering. We'll get to the heart of the story and deliver the truth you're seeking. So come join us here for the Rebel Planet at spacedoutradio.com.
The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories.
From the mile-high state of Colorado, sharing our signal around the world, I invite you to Spaced Out Sundays. Hi, I'm Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm closing out the week by taking you on a paranormal journey to the world of the weird. Ghosts, aliens, psychic phenomena, I will hit it all in your questions too. So let us highlight the paranormal for you. So come join me for Spaced Out Sundays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, Spaced Out Saturday with Joe Roop. He is back. Stanton Friedman is his... No, it's not Stanton Friedman. I forget who it is. Pardon me for saying that. I don't know who he has on tomorrow night. How bad is that? I should know, but I don't have it. Joe is back tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. We're going to play another replay this Sunday. The following Sunday, Tessa Nicole Thomas will be in for Spaced Out Sundays in her debut on this show. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on the SOR radio network, including the Fringe.fm, and we are all over social media, Facebook, Instagram, Periscope.tv. We are live every Monday through Friday night. We're on Twitter as well. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Pachydermy, oh my God, I already blew it. Pachydermoperiostosis. Pachydermoperiostosis is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, space travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. You know what? Bill actually typed in the chat room that I was going to screw that up right at the beginning. He predicted it. The man is psychic. Pachydermoperiostosis is your password. Damn it. What's that?
I said, we got to give a hats off to Bill. This is the first time you've had that much trouble.
Oh, no, it's not the first time. I mean, I had this one. Totally had this one. And I blew it. I absolutely blew it. It's terrible. All right, let me finish up here, Keith. Our YouTube channel is youtube.com/spacedoutradio. And 1 second here. Our Periscope's probably going to be like, where's Dave? Where's Dave? I'm right here. But anyways, our YouTube channel, youtube.com/spacedoutradio. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button on that. I would appreciate that. And, of course, our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to some Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, read the encounter online, and, of course, great videos from UFO Seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. Our Keith Andrews is back. Man, I'm pissed off about that password. Pissed off about the password. Damn it, Bill. You got me. You got me tonight. That's just terrible. Terrible broadcast production right there. You know? Terrible broadcast production. What's a guy going to do? We're just going to throw this one in the trash after this show. Keith, welcome back.
And thanks for having me. And welcome back to all of our listeners, both the ones that have hung with us and the ones that are just joining.
Oh, yes. Hearing me screw up the password all night long. By the way, Coco, May 5th, happy birthday to you. She's in our Periscope chat room. She's one of our new listeners as well. So happy birthday. You share the same birthday as my mother. My mother, it will be 75. Now, I'm on the West Coast, so that means she's got another 54 minutes to wait. I'm not going to wake her up. But my mom
that's very nice of you.
My mom will be 75 tomorrow. I love my mom. She is an amazing, amazing woman. The strongest person that I know. Because literally, you know, I mean, and I hate to bring up some nostalgia here, but my mom has, you know, when I had my own experiences starting on this, literally it started with my mother when I saw the angel of death in her eyes. And at that point, after that entire experience, I really didn't know how much longer we had with my mom. And, you know, following what the angel of death told me and following it to a T, I never thought my mom would see 75. I really didn't. And I'm blessed. You know, I'm 44 years old, and I'm very blessed to still have both my parents alive. A lot of people don't have that. So my mom will be 75 tomorrow. And Mom, I know you're not listening. I know you hate this program because you don't like all these topics. But love you. Happy birthday to you, Mom. And, you know, it's... You know, I feel very blessed that my mom is still around and got to meet my son and has had been able to build a relationship with my mom. But that's really, really cool. Really cool. So happy birthday, Coco, and happy birthday to my mom in 52 minutes now. It's all good. It's all good. I got the sentimental stuff out of there. Totally got the sentimental stuff. All right, let's get to some questions from the audience because I know they are building up. Yvonne wants to know if the Lemurians are tall and robed.
Well, the answer to that is some of them certainly were. I mean, their heights really did vary, but the common outfit was a robe. For the most part, they were wandering around in robes and sandals. Primarily because they were, quite frankly, a whole lot more comfortable. And for that matter, easier to manifest. Because they were, much as the nice part about it with the Lemurians, they were very creative people, and it's the one civilization. And by the way, just so people are aware, Lemurians were actually human. Well, more to the point, still are. But that was the one time that civilization had evolved to the point of actual global peace. There wasn't war, there wasn't jealousy, there wasn't conflict. It was quite literally peace on Earth. And just for edification, and this is a long topic if we get into it, the reality of it was that what killed them wasn't a war, it was a thought. And we'll get into that on a different... we should make a note of that one, eh, Dave?
We could do that.
To get into that race itself.
We can definitely do that. Definitely do that. We can move on here, too. Catalina has a question. How can we access our downloads?
Well, I'm going to give you the honest answer first, and then we'll get into the complicated one. Forget you don't know them. And that is quite literally the key. Basically, if you think of it this way, when a download comes in, it gets stuck in the memory. It gets there, you don't forget it. But as soon as it gets, because of the intensity of it, more often than not, it gets lost. If you forget you don't know where it was put, then by default, you'll remember where it was put and you can get access to it. The other option is if you know a good hypnotherapist, they can help you go back and find it. But that's the two easiest ways to do it. It really boils down to letting your mind wander inside itself to track down what you're looking for. But make sure you have something to record it with, whether that means you've got a recording device to talk into, or if you can do it, have a piece of paper and a pen and write down what you're remembering. That's the easiest way to go that route. To get to get access to the download. And of course, what do you do with it once it comes out? That may be a whole lot of other answers.
Why do you think we shouldn't remember our downloads?
Oh, I don't think you shouldn't. Quite frankly, from my standpoint, for the people that do remember the downloads, put them to use. Just keep in mind karmic and societal law. Because some of the downloads that people get are not, shall we say, in the best interest of society. But absolutely, if you're getting a download, I very strongly encourage you to I guess the best way to put it is go out of your way, make the effort to recall it. You may be surprised at the new information that comes up.
Kevin is asking, Keith, I know you don't have any daughters. He was asking if you have daughters, but I'll change this to your sons. All right. With your sons, have the aliens taken them for any type of program?
Well, this is one of those issues that gets a little complicated. The answer is they know of them, and for the most part, they've left them alone. Okay. Have they met them? The answer is yes. But if you're asking, are they taken without go-ahead? No. But that's one of the, shall we say, side effects of the past that I've got. But do they know, like I said, do they know of them? The answer is yes. As a matter of fact, my youngest one has voiced an interest in traveling with me, at the very least, to the different conferences. And I've already told him when he gets old enough to be able to sit still long enough to deal with it, I'll bring him along. The other one, not so much interest.
Joe is asking, is the U.S. government allowing aliens to fly in our airspace? Are the aliens spending most of their time over countries that can't mess with them?
Well, the answer is yes and not exactly. In other words, yes, the U.S. government does in certain cases permit or have an agreement with the off-worlders for the use of the airspace. As far as do they spend more time over places where they can't be interfered with, that's a little hard to put down on numbers because it depends on what they're looking for. The ones that are looking at that are looking for human information are going to be over the centers where they can get them. Where they can get what they're looking for. The ones that are looking for information on plant life and information on some of the remote centers are going to be where they are, but it's not a question. I don't know of a functional ratio to be able to say most are one place or the other. Because it really does depend on the purpose of the individual craft as to where it's going to go.
Let me reverse this question there. Are there places that you know of that these extraterrestrial ships are told to stay away from?
There's a couple of places that they're told to stay away from, and usually that works. Humans have not specified any space they're not allowed to go to. Like there hasn't been a contract where humans have said effectively stay out of there, aside from they do, aliens on the whole, it's not the airspace, it's the situation. And because of their understanding of human social issues, they will stay out of many of the more private places. Like, I don't think I've ever heard of somebody being abducted from in a washroom by an alien. Okay, they, for some reason, seem to stay out of that side of it. Now, sure, taking them out of the bed, that's a whole different ballgame. Okay, but mankind has not effectively said, no, you can't come here. But they have, there are some areas where if you're going to come here, we need to follow certain protocols. That side of it has been done. And Area 51 is a prime example. Okay, Area 51, Dulce is another one where the aliens do come and go, but they do follow protocols that are primarily laid out by humans because of the fact that, frankly, it's a human base.
All right, Trip is asking, do the mantids like being petted like we have here on Earth?
Well, that depends on the mantid and the purpose. Okay, if you're thinking in terms of, think of it as you would an adult human. Some adults like having their hair stroked or like being patted on the head. Most adults, not so much. Okay, that's the best way I can look at it. Although it is an intriguing question.
All right, let's move on. Next question comes from Lois, who is asking, do you know, Keith, of any of the TV shows that accurately portray the secret space program or the state of alien-human affairs as they currently are or once were?
Now, that's an excellent question. The most accurate one on a race that I've seen was, as I mentioned, the Jupiter Ascending. They got the Tormenon personality down beautifully. As far as the space, the hidden space program, understanding I am not one that has watched a whole lot of the movies. I just don't get to them. So, but I haven't. I think the best one, and it's not a movie so much as a series, but what the heck is it called? Mulder and Scully.
The X-Files.
I'm drawing a blank.
The
There
X-Files.
we go. Told you I don't watch TV much. But they've got a pretty solid. The information that they keep bringing in is pretty solid. I actually don't know of any movie that myself that talks about the hidden space program. That's the biggest problem I run into. Now, if somebody's got the name of one, I can probably tell you, but I do that in a different fashion because I haven't watched that many. Do you know of any races that actually target the space program, Dave?
Oh, goodness. I really don't know. I mean, if you believe the theories that are out there, there's a bunch of different races sitting on the moon with humans as well, working together. Mars as well. It's so tough to say. So tough to say.
I mean, I do know the other neat little thing is the moon actually has a low-grade atmosphere, which is going to be comical when they do what they're planning on.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know of a movie that actually depicts it.
Right. Well, let's move on here. Halloween Cat is asking, do the presidents of the United States know and meet aliens?
Well, I can tell you the past ones certainly knew of them. Can't say for certain if Trump has actually gone out of his way to meet them, but it would stand to reason that he would, considering the interactiveness of the whole situation in that country. Okay, I certainly can't speak to the definitive, but it's not as, this neat little thing that was said on Independence Day, on the movie Independence Day, where they said, plausible deniability. It is not quite so deniable. But that said, they're not the primary contacts. It's not a question of the aliens deal with the president. He's got enough to deal with. It's other factions that are actually at the head of the communication lines. Okay, but there's no doubt they, at the very least, are aware of them and have certainly run across, been introduced to a few of them.
I don't think Trump has. I think he's been briefed on it. I just don't get the feeling that that's something that interests him right now.
And I would tend to concur with you. He's got a bigger problem on his hands right this moment.
Exactly. Well, a lot of bigger problems. And we're not trying to get political here, so, just to actually clarify with the audience there.
Joe Monk in Spreaker has just reminded me of one, but SG-1, Stargate.
Yes.
Is actually pretty good on it.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of Joe, he is asking, I was thinking it would be easier for aliens to abduct people for some third world country rather than one of the first world countries that are bristling with military. What's your thoughts?
It certainly would be. The problem is it wouldn't give them the toxicology reports that they're looking for.
Why is that? Isn't human DNA pretty much the same throughout mankind?
Well, yes, but the poisons that, and I mean this quite literally, the poisons that first world countries put in their systems are so much more enlightening than the natural foodstuffs that the third world countries utilize. When you're looking at xenosociological economics, you want to take a look at the leading edge as well as the fringe, but you get much more definitive and much more expansive information from a first world country. So, yeah, he's right. It's definitely easier to take them out of non-militarized zones, but not half as enlightening.
It still comes back to the old adage in question, Keith, as to the fact that a lot of people worry about this alien invasion. A lot of people worry about whether or not it's coming. Should we panic? Should we accept them? Here's my take on it. And I know we've talked about this a few times over the last year and a bit. Why would they wait for us to become weaponized as we are before taking us over? Or trying to, at least. That doesn't make sense to me at all. If these extraterrestrial species have been coming here for eons, millennia, shall we say, they would have done it, if they wanted to take us over, they would have done it when the highest grade weapon was a bow and arrow, or a spear, maybe a sword, let alone aircraft that can maneuver in the skies with ridiculous G-forces, or nuclear weapons, missiles, cruise missiles. You know what I'm saying, Keith? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me why we should be worrying about some sort of alien invasion now when it didn't happen when we were not very weaponized and not very creative and technological. I agree with you more. So why the fear? Why the panic?
Because some genius out there with a hot load on the media has decided over the last several decades to go, oh, by the way, aliens are going to kill us all. Stephen Hawking's even, if I recall correctly, made the comment to the effect of all aliens are evil. You know, when you've got people in positions of power that are spreading this, you know, people believe it. I mean, if you tell somebody often enough that you're going to be invaded, they'll believe it. If you tell somebody often enough they're stupid, they'll believe they're stupid and start behaving that way. But you're absolutely on the money, and it's something that you and I are both on the same page with. We've been trying, I don't know how effectively, to get people to realize if it was going to be an invasion, the invasion would be over before mankind knew it started. I was talking to somebody just the other day about that, and, you know, we all know, well, most people know, that an EMP pulse will knock out electronics. Well, when you're looking at energy levels at the level these people that the off-worlders are bringing with them, dropping an EMP pulse over the planet is a split-second maneuver to drop mankind back into the Stone Age. You know, it's just the idea of a invasion, and for that matter, of trying to defend the planet from an invasion. Well, politely put, it's pretty much laughable. In 1986, when mankind was about to launch nuclear missiles at each other, and this has been proven, this has been released, they have pictures of UFOs going over top of every one of the silos and shutting the nuclear reactions down. Now, like you mentioned earlier, what is the point in putting a nuclear missile out in space to fight the aliens? You may as well be throwing a rock at a main battle tank. So, is the fear overrated or overstated? The answer is absolutely yes.
Without getting into anything argumentative, is that a religious base that is believing that? The media? Governments? government officials that have come out?
Politely put, it's the whole package. And it's not everyone from every one of those sections. But when you're dealing, it doesn't take much. If you have one media mogul that drops, that has, and it can be as simple as that media mogul has gotten a reputation for being upfront and honest. If they broadcast one issue that says aliens are going to invade, everybody that believes in that media is going to jump on it and go, we're in trouble. Okay. You take a look at it, and of course, obviously, when you start looking at the motivation behind doing this, regardless of what branch you're talking about, motivation is simple. If we keep people afraid, they're easier to control. But you got to have a real fine balance, because if they get too afraid, they panic, and then they're not controllable at all. It's just, frankly, Dave, people like you and I, when you start putting problem questions in the middle, and a great many of our listeners have the same thing, you throw a question in there that doesn't add up, and they're going to push for an answer, which is something that many of the people in power don't want people asking.
Let's get to Teresa's question. She says, I have read and seen things about a false flag alien invasion happening. Will there be an actual invasion soon, or do you have any knowledge of such? Or if something happens, will it be the real deal, and what will happen to Earth?
Well, first of all, from everything I've found out, there is, according to the consortium and the other local factors that I've ended up dealing with, none of them are planning on any sort of an invasion, either global or local. Okay, there's just no plans on taking over Earth from anybody, or for that matter, eradicating it. Now, granted, the Techlex would love nothing more than to strip virtually everything out of here to protect their own planet, but we are working on negotiations to get them back up for their own planet anyway, without wiping out Earth. Now, is there likely to be a false flag? No doubt there at all. Can I tell you when? Not a prayer, because my contacts don't include the military attaches to various first world governments. I can tell you, though, that I do know of a number of ships that have been either reverse engineered or engineered in the first place to look like alien craft and to handle similarly as alien craft, and therefore it would not be a stretch to utilize them in a false flag event. But when we're talking about the aliens themselves planning on any form of an invasion, the answer is no. As a matter of fact, they're literally told they literally have not only laws but safeguards against said issue. Don't know if that makes anybody feel any better, because mankind has been known in multiple countries to issue false flags, either under religious or political facades, to attain their own goals. But it's not the aliens. Now, that being said, if there were an alien invasion, we'll just really, if it's okay with you, Dave, I will run through two very quick ways that they do it.
Yeah, go for it, buddy. Go for it.
Okay, the first one, if they actually wanted to take the planet over, but they didn't want to kill anybody, or they didn't want to kill the majority of people, one EMP pulse running planet-wide, permeating the planetary mantle, and right through the core, and mankind is all the way back in the Dark Ages. They are now easy to write off, to overtake. that's if you want to just knock them back so you can now move in with minimal problem. Now, of course, the issue of mankind already has certain weapons. Wiping out the nuclear interaction of the missiles, mankind has already seen firsthand, 30 years ago now, mankind it was shown to mankind that was a waste of time. The nuclear weaponry isn't going to matter. Okay, now, if they want to go into something a little more conventional and they want to do a show of force, they'll simply pound the planet from orbit. Okay, mankind won't get a shot off because they won't have anything to shoot at. Okay, now that will result in mankind going through a massive problem because they'll target communication hubs first. They will target the research centers, the bunkers that many military installations have dealt with are not impervious to a orbital assault because the weapons that the off-worlders have will punch a hole through the planet. Okay, so, and again, net result, mankind loses. If they want to strip the place, they would simply land with motherships and they would round people up. Mankind already knows that a sonic wave will knock people out. It is not that hard to do. Same issue where it comes to, killing people, you can do it with sound. Mankind knows how to do this. Off-worlders are better at it. And then, of course, ultimately, if they just wanted to move the planet, vaporizing the planet from orbit, well, in all fairness, they do it from the outside of the galaxy, is child's play to some of these people. I've mentioned it before, and this is the last I'm going to go on that route, but I've mentioned it before. Their main ship, the consortium's main ship, their main battle gun happens to have a barrel on it that you could fly the Titanic down broadside and still have room to maneuver. Mankind does not have the capacity to stop that kind of power. So it really is kind of like mankind going, I want to wipe out an ant's nest, and the ant's trying to fight it off. It's just not going to work well. I think that's the best way to put that.
All right. Halloween Cat coming in with another question. She is asking, are there any countries that are more accepting of extraterrestrial life? If so, which countries are they?
Well, can't say for certain, but I have come to understand that, many of the third world countries, because they're more tied to the natural order of things, are a little more accepting. If history has any bearing, I'd lay odds that Australia probably is. I mean, they're pretty accepting people of just about everything else, or at least from the people I've talked to from there, and when you look at how they came about in the first place. And it wouldn't surprise me to find Canada being a little bit more on the open side, but then I'm not sure if we get stressed or just don't care.
No, I don't agree with Canada at all, my friend. I really don't, and I'll tell you why. Up here, I mean, you know that, we are so controlled by the United States when it comes to defense and military that I do not think for a second. Now, I think in South America there has been a lot of words, Brazil, Peru, a lot of these ancient, antiquated villages that are out there, the Nazca lines, so on and so forth. Now, Brazil is also apparently as weird, and we're going to put on the tinfoil here when we say this, is apparently a landing zone for a lot of these species coming into the country or into the planetary system. It's almost like you brought up the idea of the Men in Black earlier, where the Men in Black literally, you had all the aliens showing up to Earth and they had to go and show their alien passports and their ID. Apparently, from what I'm hearing, and I have no idea how true this is or not. This is just based on so much, like, probably 38th hand information here. If that's even a saying.
Well,
that's apparently where it happens, is Brazil.
Well, it wouldn't be a shock. It's a little easier to conceal if you're dropping into the middle of, of a not so well developed area, especially when you think that the Quaddle down there that were down in that area were a benevolent race. Well, they still are a benevolent race. But when you have people that are more open, it's easier to set up shop. And like you said, whether it's first hand or 38th hand, if you will, it falls under the category of plausibility. Okay, because clearly they're coming and going. I mean, I've seen them, even here in the Okanagan. I've seen them, seen the ships around. But you certainly have to, especially if you're bringing in any numbers, you certainly have to be aware of local, shall we say, local paradigms? Because that will play havoc with things.
Keith, I've been getting a lot of reports lately from people, and I don't know why it sparked up in the last 10 days to 2 weeks. I don't even know if I really believe it or not. But there's all of a sudden been a lot of reports recently regarding this super dogman type creature that carries a pharaoh's type sickle type sword that is causing a lot of havoc. Both Brazil, they've been seen in Afghanistan in the war zones. Have you ever heard of this species?
Yeah. And it's not entirely surprising, especially if they're dropping into war-torn areas. Now, Brazil, to me, doesn't strike me as overly war-torn, but maybe there's something going on down there. But they are very much a combat-oriented, and they thrive. That particular group, they are one of the general classification of lichen. I don't mean the shapeshifters, but they're canine base, if you will, and they definitively thrive on the idea of might is right. And they, for lack of a better way of putting it, live for conflict. Okay, if there's a war, they will go find it. Right? If they can get away. But of course, they do have to contend with the issue of when we talk about non-interference, that doesn't mean they can't join in the fight. It means they can't run the fight. Okay. There are some off-worlders that will get involved in political maneuvers or in military maneuvers here, but they don't run it. They don't strive to control it. They simply do. They simply fill in where they're needed, as it were, in the same capacity. But the particular lichen you're referring to, they literally will go in, and they're not worried about whether you see them overly, aside from they don't want to become public knowledge because it makes it very difficult to go and enjoy yourself. But that's of course, with the increasing tensions around Earth, that's why you're getting more of them.
Well, apparently this species is very violent. And,
that's putting it mildly.
And their swords are very sharp. One of the reports that I heard was that a couple of American soldiers in the army over in Afghanistan actually watched one of these creatures slice an infidel almost in half from neck to the belly button, clean through, from about
that would make total sense.
20 yards away.
Yeah, that would make total sense. Basically, what you're dealing with is a special type of edging on the weapon, and of course, take a look at the musculature of the of the critter at the same time. And you will turn, when you're dealing with that, you can cut through, just about anything. I've seen, you take a look at that weapon, and when you realize that it is sharpened to such an edge that if they were to drop it, they'd cut from the shoulder pretty much into the top of the lungs, if all they did was drop the weapon. Okay, you're talking about that kind of an edge. Okay.
It's pretty traumatic because these soldiers who talked to a good researcher of ours, Jody Cook, out of Ohio, and Jody will be back on in July to discuss his findings on this. They hadn't even mentioned this to their own superiors because they didn't know how to explain it. And if they did explain it, they were also worried about any potential repercussions if they saw something that maybe they weren't supposed to see.
Well, they certainly, that is definitely part of the problem. And of course, when you start talking about, I saw this happen, there's always that catch-all of, you're nuts. And they don't want a Section 8. That's the issue that you look at there. That's one of the issues. Okay, because, let's face it, talking about something like that, when you talk about seeing something like that, it's going to leave a mark, mentally speaking, forever. That's the biggest thing that you have to deal with. But when you're talking about brutality, absolutely. This is one of the things that people don't realize. Mankind goes to war, and they've got protocols, and they've got, rules and what have you. Off-worlders on the whole don't, and these guys have one rule. Kill with as much bravado as you can manage, because that instills fear in your opponent.
So are they hired guns then, Keith? Is that what you're saying?
Sometimes. Tormenons are more often than not hired, but these guys will hire. Okay. And a lot of the time they'll go in as hired guns because, frankly, they're not allowed to directly influence. So if they go in under contract, they don't have that problem. Okay.
Right. Keith, we're going to get to the thought of the day. You sit tight.
Okay.
Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time, where we post a question on our Facebook page. It travels over to Twitter. We get your responses for the Thought of the Dave. And today's Thought of the Dave is as follow. Not including your ex or your former mother-in-law, what was your alien contact like? And please explain. Now, for me personally, as for many of you, you say, which one? Which story do you want? Which story do you want? For me, I always go back to one of two instances, the one in the forest and Carl. Those are the eye-opener ones for me because I wasn't in that dream state. Those are the ones that are important. Keith, do you have one out of all of your experiences that just is so profound that no matter what you do, you'll always remember every exact moment of that?
Oh, yeah. My first encounter with what I simply call Source. And quite frankly, when I got there, the best way I can put it, the best way I can describe the color is it was a phenomenal golden beach sky and sea. I mean, and gold does not begin to describe the color. But when I got there, I heard this voice that said, literally, "You don't belong here yet." And I went, "But the door was open." He goes, and I will use the term he, but in all fairness, it was a he, she, it, they, call it what you will. And this incredible voice repeated, "You don't belong here yet." So, of course, this went back and forth a couple of times, and then he coalesced in front of me out of what, for lack of a better way of putting it, looked like a golden flame. Materialized in front of me, he looks at me with these incredible eyes and goes, the door was closed. I says, "Well, yeah." He says, "You opened the door." I said, "Well, of course I opened the door. But it was open when I came through it." And his immediate response was, "You can't stay here. You have a very important job to do. You must return." And net result, we had a little bit of a longer conversation, but considering the length of time we've got here, but basically what it boiled down to, that picture, that is one of the things that no matter how many times I run it through my head, I always get this same feeling of, I guess the best way of putting it is total acceptance. There was no question, there was no anxiety. It was a very all-encompassing, okay, you're here. Well, since you're here, you've got a job. And that happened when I was very young. Well, it happened just, I guess, probably just a little while before I ended up dead. But it was right near the beginning of life for me. And I've always looked at that. And I think that's why where I got this issue of, I see no difference in anybody. Yes, I see physical differences, cultural differences, but the way this individual came across, I was literally filled with an understanding that all life, all existence is interconnected, and somehow he managed to convey to me just exactly how it is all tied together. And I've yet to find anybody that can explain, that can make that look any less profound than what it really is from my end.
Well, let's listen to some of the audience stories. Marie on Twitter said, 5 came first and removed an implant. Then came one that gave me a tick that crawled under my skin. Then came another to fix the tick I broke using chi energy. All 7 perished, giving their lives for the greater good. 5 grays, 2 snakes, they were all part of the resistance. What the hell is a resistance?
Well, that, depending on why, there is a faction in the consortium that wants access to the planet, to Earth. And the consortium is here quite literally, and it's not just this planet they protect, by the way, but they have a very definitive, let the planet be run by the dominant. When we talk about local, we're talking about the evolutionary local, technologically based race on the planet. There are people in the consortium that, from multiple races, that do not agree with this and figure that because mankind is not fully evolved, then of course they should be able to rule them. That's where it comes in. And in this case, the resistance is, we usually see shows where the resistance are technically the good guys.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, not so much so.
Weird. Very high strangeness there. All right, let's hear from somebody else. Michael says, an alien contact of which kind? First, second, third, or fourth? Well, apparently we got to the 7th kind today, and Keith got all blushy on us. Let's go to Chris. Chris is saying, I was at work. This woman came in, and I knew something was off about her. She was very quiet and soft-spoken. I pretty much know she was figuring out if I could handle the truth before she told me, and I did. It was unreal. Like huge double doors opened up, reality hit, and I think the scary part about it was I wasn't afraid. She had taken over the body she was in. She told me the name of alien she was, but I can't remember. She was very nice, and I would sure like to talk with her again. Just trying to come on in, introduce yourself, maybe have a coffee. I don't know. If that happened to me, Keith, my first logical thought would be this person needs a straitjacket.
Yeah, no doubt.
So how are we supposed to take anything like that seriously? What signs do we look for?
Oddly enough, it literally comes from what feels right. And I realize when you're logic-based, that's a problem. If you take people, and when I say people, I mean from any race, take a look at what they're telling you. If it is internally consistent, in other words, if what they're telling you does fit together, then you may well be dealing with the real thing. And the best way it was put to me was when all the evidence points in that direction, then go with the evidence, but keep an eye out for that one piece of information that may derail it. So when you meet somebody that's got that funny air, take a look at them as though that's them, that's real. Do your best to start in the concept of they're not trying to pull a fast one. They just seem to be a little different. Okay, there is, by the way, no fail-safe way that I know of to be able to be certain. Because what I see as obvious is seldom obvious where it comes to dealing with these people.
Right, very understandable. Let's move on here. Shoshana says, I was a teenager and we were road tripping. A very large craft appeared very close to us and hovered. Both of us in the car could understand some beings being frightened of us. Years later, my son and a group of his friends were in the same spot and it appeared to them. They drove away so fast they almost left one guy behind. They were terrified. We got time for one more here. This goes to Ellery. A vision appeared on my blank canvas, not imagined. I was taking a photo, and I have proof. It also had a message that I cannot decipher. Interesting indeed. Mr. R. Keith Andrews, tell us where we can get a hold of you.
Well, you can get a hold of me, obviously, through here, but if you track me down on Facebook at either Ronald Keith Andrews or at Inner Voice Enterprises, you'll find both are identified by a hand-carved wooden UFO. I'm also on YouTube at R. Keith Andrews and with LinkedIn. My YouTube channel actually has all of it listed there. One quick note, though, the person that's got the hidden message that you were talking about, that's got the message they don't understand?
Yes.
That I would love to take a look at.
Well, it's on my Facebook. You can get a hold of Ellery. You know how to do
Okie doke.
Yes.
But yeah, that's the easiest way to get a hold of me.
Perfect. Next time you are on will be Friday, June 1st, my friend. You kick off the new month. Very cool.
Good.
Very cool. Keith, you hold on. I'm going to wrap this thing up. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background as Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Tomorrow night, we got Joe Roop coming in for Spaced Out Saturdays. Unfortunately, we're going to run another repeat this Sunday. We got to train up Tessa. She'll be on the following Sunday. I'm confident in that. We got to get Uncle Bob to get her intro done, too. Because Uncle Bob just makes us sound so much better. Of course he does. I want to say a big thank you to everybody listening at home, in your cars, at work, wherever you may be. Thank you so much for sharing the show and being a part of it this week. I really do appreciate it. A big shout out to everybody at hashtag Spaced Out Radio on Twitter. You made for a fun week as well. Everybody on Periscope, thank you for watching, including the newbies who came in. Yes, you, Halloween Cat, and you, Zozo, and many others of you. I appreciate it. Everybody in Spreaker, great week. You were fantastic as per usual. And of course, I can't forget the Veterans Club on Facebook, led by Cardwell. Appreciate all you do and everything that you do. Sharing the show, spreading the word, making us bigger and better each and every night. Because together, my friends, we own the night. I will talk to you on Monday. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Good night.